And just because you expand the field doesn't magically create more teams winning the national title.
But at the end of the day, you're gonna most likely have the same teams in the Final Four. It's insane to take something that's been going on for so many years. If they move it to October, could be one of the worst moves that they could possibly make as of right now.
If they want to try it for a year, whatever, but I'm gonna tell you, it's not gonna hit the same. It's easy to do that when you know they're not gonna schedule it because they would play week 1, Texas would play Ohio State the week after. So in college football, the 2014 playoff has been a huge page of discussion from everybody, big, small. And today we're going to kind of discuss, are we for the college football playoff expanding to 24 or not? I have reasons for, reasons not. And one of the arguments that I have seen a lot of people talking about, especially people like Josh Pate, Joel Klatt, is that it's more football, more excitement. And when you look at America, there's around 100 million college football fans. And expanding the college football playoff to 24 teams would absolutely create more excitement for roughly the bottom 70%. These are your teams like Bowling Green and the MAC all the way to Kansas State in the Big 12, and those programs that rarely receive national attention. But remember, there's only enough excitement in the sport. When you take it from the top and put it at the bottom, it takes it away from the top. So kind of the counter argument that I've seen is, we live in America. We are a capitalist society, and the programs that dominate the sport didn't get there by accident. Schools like Ohio State, Bama, Texas, Michigan, Notre Dame have spent 100+ years building their brands, investing resources, winning games, creating fan bases, and they earn their way at the top. And if you expand the team to 24, let's be honest, the additional teams that we're just inviting aren't suddenly becoming national championship contenders. NIL, the transfer portal has leveled the playing field, but it's not like, it used to be this big. Now it's still this big. There's still a big gap between the programs like Ohio State and Southern Alabama. There still is a huge gap. And just because you expand the field doesn't magically create more teams winning the national title, even though I do think there are more teams today that could win the national title 10 years ago. So Wyatt, I did want to ask you a question. Do you think the 2014 playoff is good for the sport, and why?
The points that you're making are valid. And the one thing I wanted to touch on is you can expand the playoff to 24. You could expand it to whatever. You could put more teams in the playoff, but at the end of the day, you're gonna most likely have the same teams in the Final Four in the championship game. You could get an Illinois, a Washington that get in there at a high end 8-4, low end 9-3 team that jump in at that 2024 spot. There is a slight chance that they actually make it, maybe make a big run, but we're not banking on that right now. There's a slight chance that they make a run to a Final Four, to a championship game. So yes, you're giving more access and you're giving those teams a chance to say, hey, we made it to the playoff, and pitch to those recruits that we had a successful season because we made the playoff. That's amazing, and that is great for those teams to be able to say that. But at the end of the day, my big concern with it is the more you expand it, the more access there is. And with the more access comes the devaluation of regular season games, because you know that, hey, we can lose a fourth of our games, go 9-3, and make the playoff. Like, think about Michigan this past year.
Yeah.
They were 9-3. They were at the 16 seed-ish.
Yeah, they would have made 24.
I don't think that team was a playoff team. I'm just going to say that now. Like, you could disagree with me or not. I don't think that team was a playoff team. You could take, I'm not sure what other teams were back there. I think Iowa might have been coming in at like the 20, 25
they were like
spot-ish.
that. They would have made it at 8-4.
Yeah. Do you think, I'm sure you agree with me, Iowa was not going to probably maybe win a playoff game, probably not, most likely. So that's kind of my take is you take the middle class teams in college football, the Iowas, the Washingtons, the South Carolinas, and you take them and you look at them and say, are those teams really going to make a run? Yes, you'll have that team, maybe in Iowa, that will make a run to win a playoff game or 2 or 3, but they're not, I don't want to use the word never, but it's going to take a lot for that team to go through. I don't even know how many rounds there would be in a 2014 playoff, but you would have to go through,
I think 5.
4+ rounds to get the 5 rounds. So you'd have to play 5 games. Is Iowa going to be able to beat 5 high-quality opponents? I don't care. I'm just using Iowa as an example. It could be any team.
I was taking all that.
But that's kind of where I see. I know, I kind of feel bad, but I just had them as an example right now. So that's kind of my take on it is the middle class gets to say we made the playoff, but you're not gonna like same with the G5 making the 12 team. Like they're not gonna make a run. They're there to fill a spot. So that's kind of my take on it as of right now.
Yeah, and I mean, a team like Iowa, they were, I think, the only team ranked with 4 losses. Remember, I mean, that team lost to Iowa State, and Iowa State, they took their players, went to Penn State, and they're not bad players, but I mean, you lost to Iowa State. Like, it's not, Iowa's not a great team, and Iowa would have got probably beat pretty bad. I know they had the close games against Oregon and Indiana, but in general, yeah. So my take on it, and do I think 24 is good for the sport? I'm going to say yeah. And it's not for, I think, the reasons that most people are going to think. When people, and I again, not trying to dog on Josh Pate, just using him as kind of as an example, but like when people like Josh Pate or Joel Klatt talk about what's best for college football, it's always what's best for them, the fan base, the TV network, and like what's most entertaining. We talk about like in college football, we're not in the football business, we are in the entertainment business. What's the best television product? What's the most exciting playoff? Like that's what they're aiding for, and that's what they label as best for the sport. To me, I don't actually, I mean, I think it depends on what you define as what's best for the sport. I don't think the sport is really the fans. I think the sport is the coaches and the players. And right now, as someone who kind of comes from a family of business owners, I've seen what burnout looks like. I've seen the process, that kind of the headspace that some of these coaches are in. And to be honest, I mean, we're asking 136 head coaches, 136 assistant coaches out of every position, 136 OCs, 136 DCs, 10,000 plus collegiate athletes to dedicate their entire lives. I mean, especially for these head coaches, there's no off season. These guys, because of recruiting in the portal and, you know, like the media trips, there's no off season for these coaches. They work every single day, every single year for multiple decades. And in a system where they dedicate their lives, where only 12 teams make the playoff, that's ungodly exclusive. When you look at and I'm not trying to say college football should be like the NFL, but when you look at the NFL, NBA, NHL, and even like the UFL, they allow roughly 40% of the league into the playoff. That has been kind of the standard. You allow less, you don't want to allow half, a little too much. But if you allow 40% of the league into the postseason, that's where everyone, like, they get happy. But the difference is obviously college football has a lot more teams. And if you allowed 40% of college football in, I mean, we're talking about 70, we're talking like NCAA tournament level size bracket. And obviously that's not what we want. So by comparison, the NFL allows around 40% of the league into the playoff. The college football playoff allows only 9% of FBS programs. And if you count out the G5, it's roughly around 18% of Power 4 teams, which, like, I get, we love CFB being exclusive, but 18% is very exclusive for a league with 68 power teams, and plus you include Notre Dame and the one G5 team. I think it's so exclusive where at this point, even NIL is making more teams better, but the size of the playoff isn't expanding to the rate of how many teams are getting better, and it's affecting teams not scheduling non-conference games. It's not the best teams are getting in the playoff. It's not even the most deserving teams getting into the playoff. It's just the teams with the easiest schedules are getting in. And I mean, at the same time, coaches no longer have an offseason between recruiting, the portal, and NIL management, and roster potential. Like, they have to build next year's roster while they're in the playoff. The workload, it's too much. It's not sustainable, and that's why I think we're seeing coaches leave for the NFL shorter. I mean, I made a video a couple weeks ago. I think it was something dealing with Oregon, and Oregon fans got mad at me because I said Lanning was halfway through his coaching prime, and people were like, what are you talking about? His coaching prime started a couple years ago. But it's not like the 2010s where a coach's coaching prime is 10 years long. Like, it's the coach's prime is like 5 or 6 years. Kirby just left his coaching prime. Ryan Day is halfway through his coaching prime. Dan Lanning is around a third or halfway through his coaching prime. And the playoff size is not getting bigger. These guys are going to burn out faster, and they're going to either go to the NFL or simply retire. So I kind of, Wyatt, how do you kind of see that? Do you feel that the playoff size is, do you think the coaches are kind of getting overworked where it's going to, it makes more sense to get more teams in, to allow more coaches to get in, to keep coaches in the sport longer?
There's a lot of things that you said that I see that argument, like as we'll backtrack real quick for a second. I'll get back to your point. But one of the things you mentioned was scheduling more non-conference games. That was one of the pluses that I did see in a 2014 playoff was getting those Ohio State-Texas matchups, because you see teams like Notre Dame and USC who stopped their rivalry. You've seen teams, I think Alabama and Ohio State were supposed to have a home and home, or was it Alabama, or was it Ohio State, Georgia?
Bama, Georgia's going to cancel with Ohio State. We're supposed to have with Georgia. Ohio State's
Georgia,
with
okay.
Georgia.
Yeah. So Georgia was supposed to have a home and home. They're canceling, and there's no coincidence of that. I was honestly surprised that Texas and Ohio State kept theirs for this year, but there's no surprise reason why that's happening. That's because of the playoff and because of, you see what Texas did. They finished 9-3 and they were left out, and they had an argument because of the games that they won and the ranked teams that they beat. But back to your point about the coaches, and my stance was actually, if we could make it work, was a G5 playoff. That was kind of where I was pushing months ago on my channel. But of course, I don't think that we're going to ever get there. So when you talk about coaches getting in and coaches back then, I know I'm a back then 14 playoff guy. So some of my takes are going to be back how it was in the mid-teens. Coaches would define a successful season as, you take an Oregon, for example. Oregon could go 11-1, be the 5 seed, just miss out on the playoffs, but win the Rose Bowl or the Peach Bowl, and that was considered success. You make a bowl game now, you make the Gator Bowl, the Pop-Tarts Bowl, that is no longer success, because you're seeing teams, number one, they are deciding to opt out players. Coaches, for them, I would say that yes, it would give you a chance to say, hey, we made the playoffs, and to have that on your resume. But when you look at it, I see that when people say that there's a difference between being the 24 seed and being out of the playoff, and being in a bowl game and being the 24 seed and being in the playoff, there is a slight difference in terms of the title that's put on your game. It's no longer just a meaningless bowl game, which is the title that I don't like anymore. And I wish we could go back to having bowl games, but it seems like those are going to go away eventually. But the difference is you're in the playoff, but you're probably not going to go very far, as I said earlier. So I think that coaches, I don't think college football is ever going to hurt for coaches that will leave to the NFL, because there's only 32 coaches in the NFL. There's going to be a cycle of guys that will leave the NFL, come to college football, guys that will stay in college football. I don't think Kirby's going to the NFL anytime soon. Ryan Day, Dan Lanning, you might see maybe you saw Marcus Freeman, he turned down the Giants. There's coaches that prefer college football and that are specific college football coaches. You saw it with Nick Saban. He went to the Dolphins and didn't do anything and came back to college football and he dominated. So I don't think that they're going to necessarily, coaches are going to look and say, oh, well, we're not making the playoffs. This is, horrible. This is not working. I think that there's certain ways to redefine success, and that's one of the things that I think have been lost in college football, is defining what a team's success is. Because when you miss the playoff, it's either going back to the old saying, you're either 10 or you're trash. I don't think that that's the case. There's certain teams like in Iowa that, using Iowa, let's go with Washington. There's certain teams like Washington that will go 9-3, miss out in the playoff. That's still a successful season. Don't get me wrong. But people would say, well, you didn't make the playoff, so how can it be successful? I would say you have a point in what you're saying. Yeah. You definitely do, but I would just say that I would be on the other side of that, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying, and I maybe should have clarified better, is so that's not what I personally want. And my big thing is, I feel like a lot of people mix up what they personally want and then label that as what's best for the sport. So when when they wanted to expand from 4 to 12, the people that were for it were a lot of TV networks. Now that we're at 12, we might go to 16, but we're still in that 16 or under range. It was interesting because it wasn't the TV net, Greg Sankey and the ESPN, they actually don't want to go to 24. They want to stay at 16 or below. It was the players and the coaches who wanted to go to 24. So that's kind of the point I was trying to get at, where for me, do I personally think 24 is good for the sport? Absolutely not. No way ever. But I think that the sport should matter the most to the players and the coaches. They're the ones actually doing the sport. And if that's what they want and they seem miserable and, they're going 9-3, but the fan base wants to get everyone fired. Like, I get that. Like, I understand it's kind of a burnout. You work, every day and you're still kind of hated for going, 9-3? I mean, in college football, that's with how much better the bottom is compared to the top now. 9-3 is a good season. I mean, Texas went 9-3 and I know they didn't make the playoff, but that was still a decent season. So I think that when I say it's best for the sport, the players and the coaches want it. I believe they are the sport. Personally, I think 16 is the best. And honestly, I'm fine with 12. My only thing with 12 is that the bye weeks and the way, the college football schedule is not getting fixed. They're not going to fix this thing. So it's the bye.
Horrible, the schedule.
Yeah. So the byes are really killing these teams in the top four. So when you do 16, one thing is there's no byes. So everyone's coming out at the same time. Plus everyone gets a home game. And I'm tired of Ohio State, they're at the 4 seed. They get a bye and not have to play in a neutral site. I wish they were the 5 seed instead. Everyone's like, I wish I was the 5. The 5 seed's the best seed in the playoff. I don't want that to be a thing. So if we go to 16, personally, everyone plays, everyone gets a first round bye. But what I also don't want is, if we're going to go to 16, I don't want the lower half of the playoff being filled with automatic bids for teams that barely were ranked that year. Like James Madison, I think, was ranked 24th, and then they get blown out every year. So I think if we're going to go to 16, I want 1 through 16. And if we're not going to do that, just go to 8. I think 4 was a little bit too exclusive. If we're going to fill 8 through 16 with a group of 5 teams, the runner-up in the ACC, or 5-loss Duke, just go to 8. And I think you might have said it earlier, but I kind of wanted to ask you, your ideal playoff size is your ideal, is it 4, 6, 8, 12? What is your ideal playoff size?
If I could pick, if I could go back in time and totally redo the playoff structure, I think I would go with 8. And I'll tell you why here in a second. Because my take was, I love the 4 team, but I did agree that a little bit of expansion would have been good.
Yeah.
The reason I have 8 is because, number one, team, there's no bye weeks, the 4 or the 1 team plays the 8 and the 2, how it works. That would be perfect in my opinion. I've seen people say 16, like Greg Sankey in the SEC are going for 16. So there's different formats that I'm fine with. I'm fine with 12. 16, I think, is my max, where I would say that would be that's it. But here's the thing, in my opinion, I don't think that it's going to stop. I think it's just going to keep going, which really sucks. That just seems like the way it's going, because no one will agree. Well, we went to 12, everyone was good, and then 2 years later they want to expand. Who says that when we go to 24 that we're going to stop? The Big Ten might be like, hey, let's go to 32. You just never know. But my perfect format would be 8, because I'm big into having to, the access being restricted and saying, hey, no, you got to have a really, really good season to consider you in the playoff. Because I want it to be where every single game in the regular season has a meaning, to where even if you're undefeated, that's what was so good in the 4-team era, was even if you're Ohio State and you're undefeated,
Florida State,
and you go to Michigan, you have that big, that game means more than just that rivalry. It means that, hey, if you lose that, you're probably not going to the Big Ten championship, which means you're probably not going to the playoff. So it just puts meaning on every game. Now, in a 12-team era, that 11-0 Ohio State goes to Michigan and says, hey, you know what? This is the biggest game, and this is a rivalry game. Can't take that away from it. But if we lose, they'll have in the back of their minds knowing we'll still get a decent seed in the playoff. That, with the 4-team era, was not a thing. It was, man, you got to win every game. Maybe you can have 1 loss. That's it, though. So that's why I liked the less teams. So that's why 8 teams was perfect, where you could go 11-1 and make the playoff. But if you were 10-2, it was going to be tough. There would be a real conversation if you were even a high-end 10-2 team. It would be tough to get in the playoff with 2 losses. That's kind of where my perfect format would be. Because you have to, in my opinion, you have to have a really, really good season to get into the college football playoff that puts more value on those games, to say, hey, we made the playoff. That is a big thing. To have that on your resume as a coach, to say, hey, we made an 8-team college football playoff out of 134, 36 teams. We were one of the top 8 teams in college football. That to me is more special than saying, hey, we were the 24 seed in a 24-team playoff, got in and got our butts kicked. And hey, we made the playoff though. In my opinion, I think to fight for a playoff spot is better than just getting a playoff spot at an average record.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're right. Like, I remember when they went to 12, my first instinct was just go to 8, because when we were at 4, 13-0, Florida State got left out, and that was bad for the sport. And when you're at 12, we're cramming in teams like Virginia, Duke, Tulane, James Madison. So, like, I get 8. And, like, I think, the big challenge is, you're trying to find balance in a where, there's 15 different political parties trying to make money in their own way. So it's never going to happen. But if you could find a way to like bring structure to a system that, gives coaches a break and doesn't cram teams like Ohio State and Alabama and Southern Miss into the same sport where they're trying to get the same trophy, which is why if you're asking like my personal like long-term solution is you either have like a 12, 14, 16 team playoff, and it's 1 through 16, and then the group of 5 or group of 6, they get their own playoff, like the FCS, whatever the size would be, I don't know. And I think when they talked about 24, they talked about group of 6 getting their own playoff. But yeah, if they're going to go to 16, I want the top 16 teams, because what I was talking about earlier with the percentages, NFL has the 40% of the league, and right now it's only doing 9% of FBS in the playoff. If you cut out the group of 6, you just have the Power 4 and you make it 16. Now we're including 24% of the Power 4, which I think is great because it's more realistic for head coaches to get in. And it's not the NFL where it's 40% of the league, but it's not so exclusive where, 9-3 Texas because they played Ohio State in the non-conference and they had a bad loss to Florida. Okay, now you're out. Now in 16 they would get in, and I just, instead of it not being 9% and it's not 40%, it's somewhere in the middle. It's 24% of the league gets in, a little under a quarter, and I think that's probably how I would do it best.
You make a great point there, and one of the things I was thinking about as you were saying that was, the biggest issue I think currently that we have is the committee that picks these playoff games and seeds the college football playoff rankings at the end of the year needs to fix their criteria for these rankings. They need to make it where you have to take into account strength of schedule, because there is a difference between a 9-3 Texas with those high quality wins and a Vanderbilt that's 10-2. Like there is a big difference there. It's not just that one win. Like there's a difference. There's a big difference in terms of even that Texas 9-3 record in the Texas Tech. Like what were they, 12-1? There's a difference in those two records. Now I think Steve Sarkisian and Joe McGuire were going at it this past week. I could give you a take on that whole thing, but there is a difference in in opponents. Like all things considered, the Big Ten and the SEC teams get out of there with the 9-3, 10-2 records are really good battle-tested teams, like because they've got out of there with good wins. So when you really look at like Ohio State's schedule this year, if Ohio State goes 10-2 with that schedule, that is a really good year. Like to have to play Oregon, Texas, USC, Indiana, Michigan, to play those 5 insanely tough teams, you get out of there with 2 losses, that's a great year, honestly. Not like the best that Ryan Day's ever put out on the field, but all things considered, that's getting you in the playoff, and that's a really decent record. So I think if you get the whole strength of schedule and strength of opponents, also strength of losses, like you lose to high quality, like there's a difference between losing by 30 to Alabama and losing by 2 to Alabama. Big difference. You're not just losing to Alabama here. There's a big difference in that. So I think the committee just needs to fix their criteria of how they seed teams. And of course, the whole Notre Dame, Miami switcheroo thing, like that needs to be fixed as well. I think that one of the things to fix that would be don't do the college football playoff rankings until literally the final rankings after the conference championship games. And just get rid of the weekly ranking show, because that puts stress on the committee saying, hey, we got to put something out this week. What are we doing? What are we doing? Now they have the entire year to really think about it and assess, and just say, hey, you know what? Notre Dame, Miami, same record. Miami obviously beat Notre Dame, so this is what's going to happen. That way, Notre Dame would have had zero problem. I mean, they would have probably argued their case, but everyone would have been like, okay, that makes sense now to have Miami over them if we didn't see the process week to week of how that was constructed, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Miami beat Notre Dame and they made the national title. So, like, obviously, like, Miami deserved to be there. I mean, I know that, what was it, the SMU and Louisville loss were not, like, super pretty. But, I mean, even if they ranked it, making it, like, a public event, like, that was the problem. But I know you brought up Ohio State, Michigan earlier, and I kind of want to switch over and pivot to talk about Ohio State, Michigan, because there's actually been a lot of talks about a couple Michigan beat writers talking about potentially moving this game to like mid-October, kind of like what we see with Texas, Oklahoma. And I think we talked about earlier how if Ohio State's guaranteed to be in the playoff, does it make this game any less valuable? And when we look at, 2024, Michigan was bad and Ohio State was really good. They won the national title and they lost to Michigan. And that, like, we saw what happened after the game. It wasn't like that game didn't matter. And there was so many things that rivalry alone, whether it has stakes or not, that rivalry by itself brings so much energy and juice to the table where it doesn't really matter. But, if it has a playoff spot locked up, whoever wins it, kind of like what happened in 21, 22, and 23, like, I get it. It adds more juice to it. So I think the argument that was being made about moving this game to October was that in a 24-team playoff, when you get to that last game of the year, for someone like Ohio State or Michigan to actually miss the playoff in a 24-team playoff, they would have had to lose 3 or 4 games. Remember, Iowa's going to make it this year. 3 or 4 games before to get it there. And it's like, well, if you have 2 losses heading into that game, you already know no matter if you lose by 1,000,000, you're already guaranteed to be in the playoff. But if that game happens earlier in the season, we don't really know where these teams are going to end up. We might only be 4 games into the season, and a win or loss here might change the path of where that team lines up compared to, if like this past year, if it was a 24-team playoff, Ohio State's undefeated. Michigan already had 2 losses, but in a 24-team playoff, whoever wins or loses, both teams would automatically get in. But if that game happened earlier in the year, Ohio State's still undefeated. Michigan only has 1 loss. So we don't actually know where these teams are going to end up. And the argument is kind of in a 24-team playoff, it would make more sense to move it to October. And I kind of want to get your opinion how you would feel if that game was moved, or just any rivalry at the end of the year being moved up.
Yeah, my opinion on that would be it's kind of insane, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to move something, it's almost similar to the Notre Dame USC rivalry being stopped. It's insane to take something that's been going on for so many years, longer than me and you have been alive.
Yeah.
That rivalry game has been played
longer
on that week for literally as long as anyone can remember at this point. Anyone that's alive can remember. That game, if they move it to October, could be one of the worst moves that they could possibly make as of right now. Because I think that, like, it's called rivalry week for a reason. Like, why are we moving rivalry games? It's happened before with other teams moving games. Like, I think Oklahoma and Oklahoma State stopped playing that game on rivalry week.
USC Notre Dame bounces around too. Sometimes it's at the end, sometimes it's in the middle of the season.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. If that's a rivalry game, put it in rivalry week. Like, imagine if Florida State, Florida played week 1. Like, what? Like, that would be just absurd. So to have this game moved to October just would be the dumbest move that I think that either college football as a whole could make. I'm not sure exactly who's kind of trying to push for this, but that would be the dumbest move I think that they could make at this point, going with, trying to figure out the college football calendar as a whole that's completely at a mess right now with the transfer portal and coaching carousel and recruiting and all that, being messed up. To change this game would be the worst move because this has been, as I said, going on for literally forever. This is one of the most iconic games, and we've seen it played at the same week, having the same implications on it almost every season, more seasons than not.
Yeah.
But this game, the winner of that goes to the conference championship. Only this past few years has it been, more lopsided towards like Ohio State.
Yeah.
But like 2023, for example, like the winner of that went to the Big Ten championship and probably won that game and moved on to the playoff. So there's just so much that's on that game that you can't move it. Like, you just cannot move it at this point.
Yeah, and honestly, like I kind of want to ask again how you feel about this. Like, do you feel like me personally? I've seen some other people talk about this, but like me personally, I feel like people talk about how like the big three rivalries. It's Ohio State, Michigan, Bama, Auburn, Texas, Oklahoma. And I'm not saying I like disagree with those rankings, but like I'm gonna be honest, like Texas, Oklahoma doesn't feel that big because it is kind of just like in the middle of the season. I feel like Texas, Oklahoma would be even bigger if it was pushed to the end because it's something you're looking forward to all year. Like imagine if like Ohio State played Michigan week 5 and they lost. I mean, as a personal, not from like a college football like analyst perspective, but as a fan perspective, if I lost to Michigan in week 5, every game after that does not mean anything to me. I am miserable for the rest of the regular season. I want that game to be at the end. I want that game to be when both teams are at their absolute best. Healthy or not, I love the whole season building up to that game. Like what you said, I know it's not as important anymore, but at least in the 4-team era, that game being at the end, I mean, like think of 21, 22, 23, winner goes to the playoff, loser goes home. Like I know the stakes aren't as much there anymore, but it's still, I would still love to keep it at the end of the season. And for like a lot of people saying to move it up, like if they want to try it for a year, whatever. But I'm gonna tell you, it's not gonna hit the same. It being because not only is it's in rivalry week, the rivalry week revolves around Ohio State, Michigan. The whole week revolves around one game. That's why it's called the game. It's the biggest game in the regular season every single year for a reason. And if it's in the middle of the season, it's like what? It doesn't make sense to have the peak of the season be in the middle of the season.
I 100% agree. There's certain things in college football that are almost like unwritten rules. Mm-hmm. Like this just has to happen on this day, and that is one of them. It's an unwritten rule, and they can't change it. There is certain rivalry games that like Texas, Oklahoma that I would love to see at the end of the year, but again, that Texas A&M game I think is a little bit
it makes more sense for them because they have so many rivalries.
Yeah. But I mean, I gotta admit, the Red River Shootout is one of my favorite rivalry games. Mm-hmm. But there is imagine moving Alabama Auburn, like as you said earlier, like that would just be so much, like it would just feel like another conference game. Like
exactly, yeah.
Meaning, like it would be like, oh, we're just playing this team week 4 or week 5, like it's just another conference game when it's at rivalry week. And another thing is going back to Ohio State, Michigan, if those two teams play at rivalry week, there's so much more emphasis on it because whoever loses, you don't get another shot to up your ranking.
Exactly.
Like that's it. Like that is it. Your season is done. You can't have another game to show your fans like, oh, that was just a fluke. Like, we'll come back and be better the rest of the season. Fate. No, that's it. Mm-hmm. Like that is, you are going to live the rest of the year with that being your last game, and you're going to have to live with it for another year until you get another shot at them. If it's week 5, you're going to be like, hey, we got, another 6-7 games and we're going to bounce back and we'll finish 11-1. We'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Like there's just so much more emphasis when it comes to that last game. Because when you're at week 9, you're at week 10, you're thinking, oh man, here it comes. I'm getting goosebumps right now just talking about it. Like that emphasis, like that energy just builds up into that game. And you completely lose that if you go to like a week 5, week 6 game.
Yeah, I mean, even in the 4-team era, like you look at like 21, 22, 23, where winner goes to the playoff, loser goes home. If that game happened in the middle of the season, and if let's say when Ohio State lost, they would have like 5 more games to get back into playoff rankings because they're Ohio State. Like that's like, there's a reason it's at the end. It is your last, written line on your resume, and that's why I love it. But yeah, and also the last thing before we move on is if we move that game up earlier, the best Ohio State Michigan games of all time have been in the snow. And if you move that game up, we lose that. There's no more snow games, no more in the cold, no more Big Ten weather. It doesn't hit the same. But before we get out of here, I think we talked about this before, is I wanted to do a Final Four and a championship winner and kind of explain why. And I'll let you go first.
All right, I'll pull up my Final Four here real quick. So this took quite a bit actually to think about because my original preseason one was kind of similar, but I think my championship game is totally different this time around. I am going to do a full breakdown playoff like on my channel. Probably, I would say early August, I'll do a full like 12-team playoff
Yeah.
breakdown. But as for my Final Four, I have Miami, Oregon, Ohio State, and Texas. So my
Okay.
thought process through this was we'll start with Texas. I look at Texas. Texas is really good, man. You look at their offense. If Arch Manning could give me a B plus performance, and you pair that B plus performance with Hollywood Smothers at running back, Rulik Brown at running back, Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, like that offense is insane. Colin Simmons on defense, like that Texas team, it's so hard to look at them and say that they're not going to be a Final Four team. I know we said that last year with them being a playoff team, but if something happens with like whether it's injury or what hits Texas, I could see a world where they don't quite make the Final Four. But man, if they're healthy throughout the whole season, I really like Texas. And Ohio State, I have them at the Final Four. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Julian Sand, Jeremiah Smith, Bo Jackson. There's really nothing else that you have to kind of go over. Now, I know they're losing a lot on the defensive side of the ball, but Matt Patricia's going to get the back. Like,
Matty
that
P's
guy
coming
was...
back.
Yeah, like he showed them... He showed what he could do last year. And yes, he's not going to have the Sonny Styles, the Arvo Reeses, the Caleb Downs, but he's going to put a great defense on the field. As for Oregon, I mean, Dante Moore, Evan Stewart, loving that offense. So Decorey Moore, also wide receiver. Oregon, I think this is the year, similar to Texas, where it's almost like they have to get it done. Like Dan Lanning in Oregon, similar to Steve Sarkisian, you got to get it done. Like if you don't make the Final Four or championship game this year, like it's a failure of a season at this point. And that's what I love about college football is you got to put that pressure on teams. Miami, this one could be a sleeper in some people's. I don't know what you're going to Final Four you're going to have, but for me, Miami, I actually think that this could be a hot take, but I think that Miami's team this season, like previewing their team this season and their roster on paper, is better than their team last season.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Now, are they going to make in the championship game? I don't know. We'll see in a second, but they are one of the best on paper teams that Miami has had under Mario Cristobal. Now, last year was phenomenal. I get that. But you got Malachi Toney coming back as a sophomore. That guy's going to be a top 10 Heisman finalist, no doubt. You got Darren Mensah, who I think could be in the Heisman conversation at the end of the year. That guy is just so talented. He can do it all. He showed it at Duke. And then you have Mark Fletcher coming back at running back. That guy is a monster. Like, that is a top 2 running back this year in college football. Like, really? Derrick Henry comps for him. Like, that guy is going to be a phenomenal running back. Their defense is losing some guys, especially on that defensive line, but I think that they're going to backfill nicely. Miami does a great job recruiting. I saw, right before we jumped on, I actually saw Miami's 2027 recruiting class is top 3 now.
They
so
just
Mark Cristobal has done
the guy from LSU, the edge rusher, right?
I believe so, yes. Yeah. So they have done an amazing job at recruiting. So that's kind of my Final Four. I don't know, do you want me to get to my championship game real quick, or do you want to do your Final Four?
You can do your championship game.
So for my championship game, this one took me a while. I really wanted to slide Miami in here, but I just couldn't find a way to make it work with these other 2 teams. So I actually have Oregon and Texas in my final championship game. I'm not sure, how the side of the bracket's going to work, like these 2 teams will be on the same side or not. But, as for me, I think that these are the 2 teams that have the most pressure. Like, you think about Ryan Day, won a championship 2 years ago. There's not as much pressure on him as there was. Miami, literally championship runner-up. No one saw that coming last year from them, so overachieving then. So those 2 teams don't have as much pressure. I think the pressure that's built up with Texas and Oregon is going to be so much that they are going to have the extra motivation to really get it done this year. So I have Oregon and Texas in my final 2, my championship game. My champion as of right now, post-spring, it was really tough for me. It really was. As much as I wanted to pick the other team, I went with Oregon. As much as I wanted to pick Texas, I just think that Oregon as a team is a little bit older, number one. I think that their staff is slightly better. Now, I know they're replacing a lot. Staffs are pretty comparable, but I think that Dan Lanning is going to get it done this year. Like, I know that Texas is bringing in Will Muschamp, a defensive coordinator. Like, I know they're bringing in a lot, and it's probably going to work. Like, if they make the championship game and win it, I will not be shocked. But I have Oregon there because I think that they're going to be just slightly better and have that extra chip on their shoulder. Dante Moore coming back, he just has a lot of experience. Evan Stewart is going to be fully healthy this season. DeCorian Moore, as I said, they're returning a few running backs. So this team, to me, looks like the best team in the country. And to be honest with you, I could see Ohio State winning the championship as well with their roster. I just, with everything they're going to go through with the season and having those, tough 5, insane tough games, just getting through the playoff, I think it's going to be a lot for them. So that's why I have Oregon slightly edging them, depending on how the bracket goes. They could play Texas or whatever. Yeah. And as for Miami, would love to put them there. Just couldn't figure out a spot to fit them in. So that's my championship game. I got Oregon as my post-spring top 20 or post-spring champion. Sorry.
See, actually, I like that a lot, and mine's somewhat similar, and I kind of want to make a distinguish. This is, my Final Four is not my, so I did a video on my top 25 and my playoff bracket, so I'm kind of just pulling this straight from that video, and my top 5, I'm trying to remember, but I think it was, I forget the exact order, but like my top 5 teams, I think it was Ohio State 1, Miami 2, Oregon 3, Georgia 4, Notre Dame 5, Texas 6, so kind of the same of those top teams, and I want to kind of go the quarterfinals because there's a couple teams that you talked about that I left out, but I'm still trying to respect. So my Final Four is Ohio State versus Georgia and Notre Dame versus Oregon, and how we got there is I had Ohio State beating A&M, I had Georgia beating Texas in the quarterfinals, and then I had Notre Dame beating Indiana. And then I had Oregon beating Miami. And remember, like, I had Miami number 2 in the country. I love Darian Mensah is my Heisman pick. Like, I think, like, I love Darian. I think he was phenomenal at Duke. I mean, he won the ACC. I know he had 5 losses, but, he won the ACC. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, like, Mark Fletcher is just incredible.
Also Duke, by the way, so.
Yeah.
The difference in talent.
And Mark Fletcher is amazing. And the thing that holds him back, and the reason why I picked, is like, honestly, like Oregon versus Miami could be the national. Those are 2 like national title favorites. But I have the game just happening in the quarterfinals, and I have Oregon beating Miami. And I love Miami, but I think, man, losing both edge rushers, losing both tackles. Like, we saw what happened to Ohio State. I mean, they were a top 3 team last year. They lost in the quarterfinals because they did not have the edge rushers. And I know Arvell was great, but they didn't have the edge rushers. They did not have the tackles. So I think actually Miami's going to kind of fall the same fate that Ohio State did last year. But for my Final Four, I have Ohio State versus Georgia. I'm very high on Georgia. Again, I had Georgia beating Texas to get here. And I mean, what has been the problem with Georgia is just, it's been the defense. The offense, for some reason, they're not even close to being the most talented. But man, I mean, they put up 34 on Ole Miss. Like, they score points. And that's all because of Kirby's coaching, but it's just been the defense. The defense is talented, but the schematics need to get better. I think they'll take that step, and I think Gunnar Stockton being in this is his 2nd full year starting. I love him getting there. Ohio State again, not much explanation. They have Jeremiah Smith. And then for Notre Dame, my concern for Notre Dame is the running game. I've seen the guy they're replacing Jeremiah Love with. Looks good, but is he going to play good? I don't know, but CJ Carr's great, and plus Leonard Moore. I mean, Marcus Freeman took a less talented team. The Notre Dame in 24 is less talented than this Notre Dame team, and that team almost beat Ohio State in the national title. I mean, that was a 1-possession game with a couple minutes left. And then for Oregon, they're this year's Penn State, this year's Ohio State, Michigan, where like all the seniors are coming back for the championship year. Obviously, Ohio State and Michigan won the title. Penn State, Clemson, LSU went 6-6. So are they going to be like a Penn State, or are they going to be an Ohio State or Michigan? I don't know. I trust Dan Lanning more than James Franklin. So I would probably lean closer towards the Ohio State championship year than like Penn State going 6-6. I don't think Oregon's going to go 6-6. But for my championship game, I'm going to say Ohio State's going to beat Georgia. Again, the Big Ten coaching has just been so much better than the SEC. And I actually think it's going to be an offensive game. I think Ohio State will be able to capitalize on Georgia's defense, but I actually think Ohio State's defense is going to take a big step back. I mean, the liabilities with Jermaine Matthews, you're losing Caleb Downs, you're losing Caden McDonald, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Igbenos. I mean, you're losing a ton on defense, and I love Patricia, but I mean, I want to see it before I believe it. So I have Ohio State beating Georgia. For Notre Dame versus Oregon, this is kind of the tale of complementary football. Who can play complementary football first? And honestly, I trust Oregon's running game more than I trust Notre Dame's running game, and that's why I got Oregon going to the chip. So my championship game is an all Big Ten natty, Ohio State versus Oregon. And I actually had Ohio State beating, so Ohio State would only have one loss. They would have beaten Oregon, lost to USC, then beaten Oregon again in the Big Ten championship. So they've already beaten Oregon two times in a row earlier this season. So it's going to be like a one-loss Ohio State versus like 1-seed Ohio State versus 6-seed Oregon. And look, it's hard to beat a good team twice. It's really hard to beat a good team 3 times. I think Oregon beats Ohio State. I think Oregon wins the national title after losing 2 times to Ohio State in Columbus and in the Big Ten title, which means Oregon's your national champions. They're probably I'm trying to think, 15-2, 14-2. Big Ten wins 4 in a row, and also just like you, I got Oregon winning the national title.
Yeah, no, I love that setup of playoff games, and I got to say, my top 12 is probably very similar to yours. Like I had Texas A&M in there. Pretty sure I had USC in there. I had Indiana. I'm trying to think. I think I had Ole Miss slotted in there, Georgia. So it's going to be pretty similar. But I would 100% agree with your top 4. I think that it's going to come down. I think a Big Ten team is going to win it, whether it's Oregon, whether it's Ohio State.
Yeah.
I would not see a problem with switching Georgia and Texas either. Georgia is really good, and again, it's Kirby Smart. It's kind of hard to doubt Kirby Smart, similar to almost like Nick Saban. Like it's hard to count them out of the Final Four in the playoffs. So yeah, no, I 100% agree with everything you're saying there.
Yeah, and I love that. And I guess that's kind of all we had for today. I don't know do you want to talk about Texas versus Texas Tech for a little bit?
If you wanted to jump into it real quick, I mean, I'm fine if you want to jump into it real quick.
Yeah, we can do it before we get out of here. So Steve Sarkisian last week throwing shots about beating Texas Tech with their 2-3s. Obviously, Texas Tech just lost their quarterback in. Who is the head coach at Texas Tech? I forget his name.
Joey McGuire.
Joey McGuire. Joey McGuire claps back at Steve Sarkisian saying, we'll schedule you. We'll buy out Albine Christian, which it's easy to do that when you know they're not going to schedule it because they would play week 1. Texas would play Ohio State the week after. So it's easy to pump your chest out when you know there's no shots coming back. But I guess how do you feel? I mean, how do you kind of feel about the whole Texas versus Texas Tech situation right now?
I mean, Texas Tech is obviously calling Steve Sarkisian's bluff because he knows that he will literally never do that because of the schedule that they're going to play. But man, as much as I would love to see that matchup, that would be so awesome. The amount of intensity that would be on that game, just the heated, back and forth with the coaches. Oh, that's what college football is. It's just there's no other time in life where hating each other is acceptable except for sports. And man, it is great in college football. But I got to say, my take on that is, I mean, if you're Steve Sarkisian and you're going to throw those shots at coach, expect him to fire back. If I was Joey McGuire, I would have done the exact same thing. And if I was I forget the guy's first name. His last name was Campbell. He was Texas Tech's huge donor. He was saying, hey, I'll buy out the games. I would 100% do the same thing because number one, they're not going to do that. And number two, if they did say, hey, we'll do that, that gives you a game to play to potentially win or lose close to put on your resume at the end of the year. So I would love to see it. Obviously, it's not going to happen. But, man, that would be a great home and home to have as a little series. But my take on it is, I mean, I think that if you're Steve Sarkisian and you're going to throw those accusations at a guy, expect him to fire back. That's just my opinion. You're not going to get away with just saying, hey, we'll beat you with our 2-3s. Hey, you know what? You bring your 2-3s out there, it would probably be a competitive game, but I'm taking Texas Tech in that game. Yeah. So I think I'm not sure what his agenda was behind saying that, what he was expecting. I guess I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he was expecting. Yeah. The Big 12 gets one team in the playoff, literally one team basically, and the SEC gets probably, I'm going to say, around 4 teams this year. They're probably going to get. So it's a big difference. You can lose an extra game and you're still going to make the playoff. Texas Tech, probably has to win one. They can maybe, or probably has to at least maybe lose one, maybe two.
They
I'd
have to
still
win
get
their
a playoff. I don't know.
conference. They have to win their conference.
You got to
to
win
get
your
there.
conference, or
Yeah.
else you're not getting in the playoff. Exactly. You're exactly right on that. Texas could be a top 4 team in the SEC and probably still make the playoff. So there's a bit of a difference there. I know the schedule's tougher, but there's also more leeway in the SEC in terms of final record.
Yeah, and also like Texas Tech, you left the Big 12. You left the Big 12 because you were supposed to be better than them, and now you're complaining the Big 12 has an easier schedule. Like you left them. You cannot be talking trash back to them at all. Like you left the girlfriend to get with the like you left them. That's on you for not. I mean, they made the playoff last year, and you didn't. But you left the playoff. You should have stayed in the Big 12 if you want to make the playoff with an easy schedule. That's on you.
Yeah, they're the team that wanted to go get the new shiny toy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, that's on you. You, like you said, you left the Big 12. You left Texas Tech's schedule willingly because you wanted to go to the SEC. So I have zero empathy for Texas at all. Hey, Texas Tech, you want to go to the SEC? Like, you're free to do whatever you want. I'm sure the SEC would, take you with wide open arms, but they're not. They're in the Big 12. There's a difference in conference. There is a difference, and they left the Big 12 for this new shiny toy, and that is no one's fault except their own.
But yeah, man, I love that. I think that is all we got for today. If you guys enjoyed watching today's video, make sure you subscribe to The Hot Seat and you subscribe to Wyatt Zang's A College Football Show. I'll have a link in my description to his channel, and then he'll have a link to my channel in his description. But you got any last comments before we get out of here, Wyatt?
No, I pretty much summed it up. I appreciate you for coming on my channel. I was happy to come on your channel. We got to do this again, man. We got to maybe during the season have some, react to some games, preview some games. Be fun. Hey, Trent, I appreciate you for coming on. That is all we're going to have today. I appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Make sure you click the like button. And, hey, make sure you just come back for another video. Hit that notification bell. We'll see you guys back here Monday for another live show. Doing Mondays right now, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see you guys then. Trent, thank you for coming on. We will have links in the description for your channel. Make sure you guys subscribe to his channel. He does great work, college football content. I've been watching it a lot lately, ever since you hit me up. So I appreciate you for coming on the channel.
Yeah, of course, man. We'll see you guys all later, man.